Morning, everybody. Sorry we're a little bit late. And welcome to this licensing subcommittee. We'll go through the general agenda items. To receive apologies for absence. Declarations of interest, you two, anything? Nope, nope. And I don't think there are any items of urgent business. Right. So we go to the first application, which is for a new premises license for Lily Mays. Oh, I beg your pardon. The introductions. I'd like to introduce other members of the committee here. My name is Pauline Grove-Jones and I'm chairing this. On my left, I have.
My name's Peter Fisher. I represent Wells and Holcombe.
And sorry, I beg your pardon.
My name's Georgina Perry-Warnes and I represent Holt.
We have the legal advisor. Introduce yourself.
Yeah, my name's Octavia Holman.
Licensing representative.
Good morning, I'm Lara Clare, the Licensing Enforcement Officer.
And the committee administrator.
I'm Emma Denny, the Democratic Services Manager, so I'll just be doing the technical support. And I'm Lauren Gregory, I'm the Democratic Services Officer for regulatory committees.
And you are?
Morning, I'm Dave Pemberton. I'm the Environmental Protection Officer at North Norfolk District Council, and I brought the application to review.
Right, okay. So I do apologise for that. That was naughty of me. So we'll go back to saying that we're going to look at the Lily May application.
Chair. We also have Chris Brooks,
Oh.
the Police Licensing Officer, who is attending remotely.
Good morning, Chris.
Morning, Madam Chair. I've come this way because I've got a bit of a cold this morning, so I haven't come in. But I'm Chris Brooks, I'm the Licensing Officer for Norfolk Police.
Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you.
We now go to the agenda and we have the legal advisor, if you'd like to speak.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, Mr. Hubbard. Who is Mr. Hubbard? Sorry, just hello, good morning. So I'm just going to quickly go through the procedure for today's hearing. But first of all, can I just ask, have you got a representative here who's going to speak on your behalf? No. Are you going to call any witnesses today? All of these people here. Okay. Is that okay, Madam Chair?
Yes, that's fine.
Yeah, no worries. So first of all, Madam Chair will ask the licensing officer to read from their report. Once they've read from their report, there'll be the opportunity for questions from the panel, from yourself, and also from the other persons here. So I think we've got the police officer and also NNDC environmental officer. It will then be the opportunity for you to present your case, so it'll be the opportunity for you to speak, and then they'll go to questions from the panel, the licensing officer, and other persons as well. We'll then hear from your witnesses. So each individual witness, if they'd like to then speak, there'll be the opportunity for questions again from the panel, the licensing officer, and other persons here today. We will then hear from the other persons here today, and there'll be opportunity for questions from members of the panel, the licensing officer, and yourself as well, Mr. Hubbard, okay? The panel will then ask you to summarise your case as well as the licensing officer, and then we will go to debate, so we will retire and go off and discuss the application and make the decision. The decision won't be given today, it will be given within 5 working days, and the licensing officer will write to you by email, I believe, to let you know what that is. Is that okay? Do you have any questions about the procedure? No? Okay, brilliant. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I will just ask Mr. Hubbard and his witnesses, if you could, when you speak, use your microphone, because apparently it is difficult for Mr. Brooks to hear online and other people who are listening in. Okay, so we now go to the licensing representative, to Lara, to explain the application, please.
Thank you. We're here this morning to review an existing premises licence that's in effect at Lily Mays Bar and Grill, New Street, Cromer. A valid application for a review to the premises licence was received by the authority, and we must hold this hearing to consider that application. The application is in respect to reflect the 4 licensing objectives for the Licensing Act, which is the prevention of crime and disorder, public safety, the prevention of public nuisance, and the protection from children from harm. The application was received by North Norfolk District Council from the Environmental Protection team who have bought this review, and that application can be seen at Appendix A, which is pages 23 to 26 within your bundle. The grounds to which this application has been made for this review, they're based on the playing of amplified music to excessive levels, statutory nuisance that have been witnessed, and a breach of an abatement notice. Again, that abatement notice, a copy of that is at page 38 of your bundle. Mr. Dave Pemberton, who's here to my right, is the author of the review for today. And we've got Mr. Chris Brooks, Police Licensing, who is attending remotely, who has also put in support of the review. The current premises licence gives permission to operate as follows, that they've got opening hours from Sunday to Wednesday from 10 AM till 1:30 AM. And Thursday to Saturday, the opening hours are 10 AM till 2:30 AM. They also have films, indoor sporting event, live music, recorded music, entertainment similar to live and recorded music and dancing on their licence, which the permissions for that are Sunday to Wednesday, 10 till 1 AM, and Thursdays to Saturdays, 10 AM till 2 AM. They are enabled to sell alcohol on and off the premises, Sunday to Wednesday, 10 till 1, and Thursday to Saturday, 10 till 2. And they have late night refreshment permissions for Sunday to Wednesday from 11 PM till 1:30 AM, and Thursdays to Saturdays, 11 PM till 2:30 AM. The licence is subject to the mandatory conditions, which can be seen listed at pages page 4 of the bundle and page 5 of the bundle into page 6 of the bundle. The licence is also subject to conditions which are relevant with their operating schedule, which can be seen at pages 6, pages 7 into pages 8 of the bundle. These conditions are such as the designated premises supervisor or the licensee shall ensure that no nuisance is caused by noise emanating from the premises or by vibration transmitted through the structure of the premises is one condition. External doors and windows must be kept closed is a second condition. Prominent clear notices shall be displayed at all exits, requesting customers to respect the needs of local residents and to leave the premises in the area quietly is the third condition. And they go on to pages 7, pages 8, which they are quite numbered. And there's some on there that give additional hours with regards to New Year's Eve, Burns Night, Valentine's Day, etc. We received comments from responsible authorities, which can be seen at Appendix B, and the police's representation can be seen at page 50 of your bundle, which Mr. Chris Brooks is here remotely, and he will discuss that with you. We received representations from other interested parties. They are at Appendix C, which can be seen at pages 53 and 54 of your bundle. The authority is responsible for advertising the review by way of a notice at the premises for not less than 28 consecutive days on the council website and in the council offices with regards to advertising that the review had been received. The public notice was displayed on the premises until the 15th of February 2022, which was the end of the public consultation period, whereby we could accept representations in support or in objection of the review hearing. We have also attached a plan of the local area, which is Appendix D of your bundle, which is at page 55. In determining this application, you as a committee, you have following actions that you can take. You can take actions from revoking the licence. You could remove licensable activities from the licence in order to promote the licensing objectives. You could subject the licence to further relevant conditions to promote the licensing objectives. You could refuse the review application and take no further action, or you could take any other action that the committee deems necessary. Thank you. Does anyone have any questions on the?
Yeah, okay for now.
I keep forgetting you, Chris. I do apologise, my dear. Have you got any questions you wish to ask? No, thank you. Bye.
Thank you. It's working.
So with Mr. Brooks's report, I've made a few notes. On the 24th of October 2020, there was a reported brawl outside the premises. Now, this is true. There was a brawl outside the premises, which actually had nothing to relate to my business at all. It was an incident overspilled from the Wellington Freehouse beer garden, which then in turn ended up outside of our front door. It was probably 50 strong. There was quite a few people there, of which when the incident happened, we simply closed our doors, turned our lights off, cleaned my bar, cleaned my restaurant, and all my staff went home, as it's not something I'd like to get myself involved in. The police later that evening knocked on the door, asked to speak to us, of which I spoke to them. They asked to see my CCTV. Now, obviously, any of you that live in the Cromer area, you understand where my building is. It gets absolutely battered by the North Sea on a regular occurrence, meaning signs, windows, CCTV, lights. It's a constant upkeep of maintenance that I'm constantly repairing. The CCTV footage of the camera they requested didn't work at the time. And to be honest, 4 days out of the 7 probably cuts out even now. It was wired in 12 years ago, so it's on an old wiring loom, so I can only have a certain camera attached to that wiring system. So obviously you have to understand that with it being 12 years old, it's not up to spec as it should be. I explained to the police officer that my camera didn't work. I then had to re-explain myself 4 times. PC Barnes being one of them 2 days later, that I did not wish to be a witness in what happened. It did not concern me or my business or my staff. None of my staff were harmed. It was nothing to do with any of my customers. Conversations did get quite heated with the police. I did call my solicitor to make sure I wasn't doing anything wrong, and I wasn't. So that first notice that Mr. Brooks has made, to be brutally honest, couldn't be any more wrong. The fact that I did become vocal, yes, I did, as the police officers became vocal with me. It does clearly miss out here that PC Barnes and another officer that I cannot remember his name, simply pinned one of my staff members in the corner near my CCTV footage room, requesting that he showed them. Now, obviously, my staff don't have access to this. That's only me that has access. Of which I then turned up. I simply asked the police to leave. They didn't have a warrant for my CCTV. I was not under investigation for this. I was not a suspect, and I did not wish to get involved. This incident should not be accounted against me or my license, because it did not happen on my premises. It happened on the high street, which I do not own, and I find this very wrong this has been included. 20th the 11th, 2021, a victim report. He was followed into the disabled toilets by an unknown individual. It goes by the name of Polish. Jamie, who's sitting to my right, is my brother, who helped support me through my business at weekends, especially during the bar times, not during the restaurant times. This incident did occur. I still to the day do not know what happened. I did speak to the individuals involved, including Polish. Me and my brother simply took the young man Polish outside. We had a conversation with him and we asked him to leave. Of which 3 hours later, Polish claims he was jumped by these individuals near the bus stop in Cromer. So again, what has happened here and what PC Brooks has added in has absolutely no relevance to me or my business. Police weren't called because it was a simple handbag fight, I would say, of a few exchanged words inside a bar, which I'm sure you get in every bar in Cromer, Norwich and England. And it's clearly overspilled 3 hours later somewhere in the town. So I believe this port to be very wrong. Again, shouldn't be included because nothing's happened on my premise. Just because they were in having a drink, it doesn't, I can't work out why it's then becomes my problem. Based on the above incidents, which is 2. So I've worked in the Dolphin Public House for 12 years since it had its rebrand to Bella Vista. I've owned the business for 6.5 years. I grew up in Sheringham, so I've been local to the area all my life. And it's saying here, based on the instances, Norfolk Constabulary respectfully seeks the following wording to be added in. An adequate CCTV system will be in operation for the premises when the business is open. Images must be stored in a digital format for a minimum of 28 days and made available upon request. I think this request is a bit much because I know full well not any other pubs and businesses in Cromer have this on their license. I think it's very unnecessary. The hard drive system I do have in my CCTV room is 12 years old. It only stores footage for 14 days, which I have made Norfolk Constabulary aware on many, many, many occasions. And following this incident with Polish, I went home on a Friday evening at 9:30. I had a shower, had my dinner with my wife. I went back to the bar at 10:30, as I like to oversee the bar of the evening. And a policeman come down in a van and he stopped me, wound his window down. He said, "Andy, can I have a word?" I said, "Of course." He said, "There was an incident last week with Polish." I said, "Oh yeah, there was actually." He said, "Do you mind if I come and look at the footage?" I said, "No problem. I'm here 7 days a week. You've got my mobile number. Give me a call. I'll be happy to help. But please remember, footage only lasts for 14 days. I never heard another word from him. So why is this being added into this whole debate? I don't know. It is not and should not be the business's right to have a CCTV system in operation. You don't. No, the town itself, Cromer Town, we don't have a public CCTV system yet. Sheringham does, Walsham does, but we're the only town that doesn't. Now, whether that's down to affordability and we can't afford that as a town, but if we did have, there would be a camera right outside my building where it used to be. This shouldn't come down to the business's cost. It shouldn't come down to the business's time. I'm not just a business owner that sits in his office. I'm the head chef, I'm the cleaner, I'm the barman. I work 7 days a week from 7 in the morning till midnight. I don't see my family because of this. And then I see things like this added in. And to be fair, I think it's quite wrong. I feel very victimised by the fact that that's even in there. And these 2 incidences that PC Brooks has added in don't do me justice at all. I've never once had to call the police for an incident on my premise. Not once. Not in 6.5 years of owning it. Yet, it doesn't say in here, on the 4 occasions that I have come forward and given my CCTV footage to the police. 3 17-year-old lads were attacked outside the welly, outside my side door, 6 months ago by 2 24-year-old grown men. And when I say attacked, I mean physically and brutally attacked. Their faces were in bits. I arrived at work at 11 p.m. with my brother. We downloaded the CCTV footage straight away and I gave it to a police officer there and then. But that's not added in there to say that I'm doing something for the community. So there's 4 occasions of which I have recorded down that I have helped Norfolk Constabulary off my own back. But you haven't put that in here as a positive, PC Brooks, and that kind of upsets me because I'm trying to do something for the community there, and you haven't taken that into consideration. All you've done here is tried to put 2 negative points in here, which generally do not concern my business at all. I know I've done wrong in some areas. but this here, I don't think it should be accounted at all. CCTV is a genuine upkeep. It's very expensive to maintain. If I change my hard drive, I'm looking at £1,000. Not money I have right now spare, not money I'm going to have spare this year, to be honest. As I continually reinvest in my business and my staff and the town itself. So I think this area here from PC Brooks needs reviewing immensely. And there are two officers that you could probably speak to direct, being PC Mazzetti and PC Smith from Sheringham, who I am continually working with back to back. I even have their personal mobile numbers because I work with them and the community to make sure things are right. And I think maybe they should be addressed before any more is said from the constabulary. That's all I have to say on that part. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hubbard. Now, do you want to call witnesses?
Sorry, Mr. Hubbard.
Yes.
Madam Chair, could we go to questions first, just for Mr. Hubbard?
Questions?
Yeah, so from yourself, from the licensing officer, other persons, and also I have a question as well.
Right, so we're going on to section 7.
So I think first, if we ask questions of Mr. Hubbard, and thereafter we'll invite the witnesses to speak, and then questions of each of those individually, if that's okay, Madam Chair.
Yes, I think you're turning this round slightly because we normally do it the other way,
Okay.
but yes, we can do that if you like.
Okay.
So questions to the applicant, right. Any questions from the board members? Yes, Georgina.
We haven't addressed any of the issues about the noise and the bass and the vibrations.
Sorry, I assumed we were just addressing PC Brooks's bits, which he's added in here, which did nothing that PC Brooks has put in here comes down to any noise. It's simply them just adding in their part that there's been trouble. So I apologise.
Sorry, can I-
Yes, go on.
So could I hear those issues addressed, if you don't mind?
Of course, no
Thank
problem.
you.
Surrounding the noise issues, the abatement notice that was served in 2018, yes, rules were broken considerably, to be honest, which I held my hand up for, which myself and David Pemberton addressed and dealt with, and I came forward. I took a caution because whether it was myself or my staff, even if my staff are to blame, it obviously comes down on my shoulders, and I've taken that on the chin immensely. And I know the reason that we're sitting here is because after just before the caution was given, there was an incident in October, which is addressed in here, of which one of my staff were fired for breaking the rules. I was away for that weekend with my wife and my daughter, and I believe he decided to throw himself a party until the early hours of the morning, of which I wasn't aware until I met with David, and which we discussed, and I dealt with it there and then. Coming to, obviously we're not at the witness statements yet from the two residences that have come forward and the complaints that have come forward. So once we get to that, I'll address those. But on some occasions to those, yes, they're right. On some occasions, they couldn't be more wrong. So page 30, section 3, in regards to your question there, one complaint said the music, vibrations, noise was ongoing from 5 p.m. for 10 days straight. Now, as adults, humans sitting in this room, how you could subsequently believe any word of that is beyond me. I am a restaurant. I'm not a nightclub, and I'm not a pub. I'm a bar and grill. My restaurant is served from 12 p.m. to 9:30 p.m. 7 days a week. I serve families from all over. I'm a very family-friendly restaurant. If you believe that I have music pumping out from 5 p.m., then I don't even have a case, because I can't even believe I'm having to have that argument or that debate. 10 days straight, I just don't believe it. I have records of when my staff clock in and clock out, and I would love to bring that evidence forward so you could see for yourself when my staff start and finish, and then you would see how outrageous some of these complaints that have come to your door are. Amplified music, you obviously get that with any band and DJ you have. I have not had a band and DJ for years, for a long time. I've only ever used my music system. One complainant said from 5:30 p.m. to 0:55 hours in the morning, music was pumping out so bad the items on their shelves were shaking. Again, this is just a stonewall lie. My music would not be pumping out from 5:30 p.m. because if I have 5-year-old diners in with their family, my daughter's only 8. And if you think I would pump music out while there's children running around, while there's families, nans, granddads, then again, I am speechless to my response. Music started at 6 p.m., 6:30 p.m., but we open at 12. So they're saying that no music was being played until 6:30 p.m. in another complaint. Well, we open at 12, so they're missing 6.5 hours there. Within the complaint there, I've seen that it says here, Mr. Hubbard has rebranded from Craft Burger into Lily Mays, which is now a cocktail bar. That's wrong. It's wrong. Wrong description of my business and wrong description of the premises altogether. I'm a bar and grill, and I have a very small cocktail bar, and we advertise that we serve cocktails. Cocktails are very much the in thing, so why wouldn't we advertise that? My opening hours haven't changed. My food service time still finish at 9 and 9:30 on the weekends and summer holidays, half terms, and my bar still closes. Well, it was 1 a.m. It's now midnight, and it has been midnight for a long time. So I struggle to believe some of these complaints that have come forward. Some lady saying she's sleeping with earplugs in her ears, head under the pillow, wishing for it all to be over, and that happened for 10 days straight. It's not true. So I can't even argue the case because I wouldn't even know where to start in what's being said. Obviously, one of these residents that have come forward and in support of your review, she doesn't even live in our building. She's not a resident in one of the flats. She's in a neighbouring property of Pier Court. I know exactly who the lady is, even though you've blanked out her name and her address. She's not a very pleasant lady. Yes, I have had multiple run-ins with her regarding the bins, the bin area, and how the bin is cleaned, of which I've worked with Richard Crabb continuously on this, of which my staff, my time and my money clean this area once a week with a pressure washer every Friday when the bins are emptied from the council and from Veolia, who are the two suppliers. The bins that are in that area supply the residents of my building. They also supply my building, the ice cream shop on the corner. This lady has never been very supportive. I even clean her windows for her. I'll just add that in there, but she's obviously missed that out because she's not going to say anything nice about myself. I don't like the fact that she said we've had many heated encounters. Yes, we have. Yes, she told me I was a fucking twat one day and told me that I was the worst thing to happen to this area. She's also called me the C word. A resident upstairs also told me she wished I died. But again, I haven't come to you with these complaints because it's just people being people. It's their choice to say these things. Yeah. So she's supporting the restrictions. The same lady complains when I actually put a bin in the bin. But maybe I should leave it on the floor at night time so it doesn't make any noise and then the rats can attack it. That's no problem. And then she's put here, I want to remain anonymous as there's a very real possibility of further threats, abuse and damage to our property. I'll ask Mr. Brooks that. Has she ever called the police for threats, abuse or damage? I don't believe she has. I'm a 31-year-old grown man and this lady's 65 years old. Yes, I may have raised my voice once or twice, but who wouldn't in that situation? I've never threatened her, never abused her and never touched her property. And actually, you'd have seen on Facebook a few months ago, I believe it was September, a lot of criminal damage was done, spray painting to people's cars, my building, the lady's building who lives opposite me in Pier Court. Someone wrote nonce on our bin cupboard. Someone wrote nonce on her wall. Who do you think cleaned that wall up? Who do you think painted that wall again? Myself. My time, my money, my paint, not her, me. Who found out who done it? Me. Who had the young girl of 16 years old crying in my doorstep, apologising? Myself. No, I did not report the incident of the criminal damage to my building because we're all kids and we all make mistakes at times. I simply offered the young girl a job to try and help her out and put her out of the trouble that she was in, of which she accepted. And she will be starting with me this summer. So if I'm such a bad oaf to this town and this building, why is it I do these things? Yes, of course, I'm going to stand up for myself, especially when support reviews like this come from this type of person who has a huge problem with the town progressing. We're now in 2022, we're not in 1985 anymore. We have to move with the times. We obviously have a very, very high rate of elderly and older generation in our town, which I'm fine with. But they understand that we need to move with the times and move with where we're going. And I don't feel they do. And I feel people like myself are then victimised and punished because of that. But again, I think this whole complaint from this lady should be disregarded. It's nothing to do with the music, nothing to do with noise, nothing to do with nuisance. It's simply a personal vendetta against myself because she hasn't got her own way. So I don't see how this one can be added in. And I don't see how that can be used as a witness statement at all. And she's not come to PC Brooks or Norfolk Constabulary with any threats, abuse or damage to her property. So I think this one's very irrelevant. Other than that, I don't have much more to say on that matter. Thank you.
Councillor?
Just one follow-up.
Yes, turn your.
So she's not here today to present her arguments because I would have asked her if she had said that she was going to have you closed down, because I saw 2 of the emails mentioned that she had. So I can ask you, has she ever said to you, I'm going to have you closed down?
She has never said, I'm going to have you closed down. It was a wish that she would have me closed down. Yeah, we all need to make a living, don't we? And me upsetting residents and the local town is not the thing I want to do while I'm making my living. I also won't be spoken to like a piece of crap that she's just stood in on the floor. I also won't have my 16 and 17-year-old staff spoken to like a piece of crap. She stood on the floor, which she has done on numerous occasions. She's had one of my staff in tears, of which I've had to deal with. I even had an argument with her Christmas Day a few years ago. So, because we were making too much noise, Christmas Day, which when I say noise, I mean noise in the bin areas, taking bins out. So when we open our bins and we have a sack of heavy bottles and we drop it in the bins, it's too noisy. So no, she's never said she's going to have me closed down, because under what grounds can she have me closed down? She has always just wished that she would have me closed down and that I would disappear has been another one of her words. So, yeah.
Okay, Georgie?
Yes, thank you.
Peter, anything you wish to say?
Thank you very much, Mr. Hubbard, for your statement. I would like to hear a response from Chris Brooks and from Laura and from yourself, please, for those statements.
Mr. Brooks, can you come in here, please? You're on mute. Can you unmute yourself? You're still on mute, I'm afraid. That's it.
Confirm you can hear me now, Madam Chair. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Magic, thank you. Okay, I haven't been privy to everything that's been said. I heard Mr. Hubbard responding to the representations that have been made by the Environment Health team, and certainly my letter. Am I going to get a chance to present that letter, or have we moved past that now? Shall I go straight to questions to Mr. Hubbard about what he said?
Yeah, you'll have the opportunity to present in a short moment, but for now, if you could just address questions, if that's okay. Thank you.
Okay. Just to make it clear then, my role, I'm the licensing officer. I only deal with licensed premises and reports come into licensed premises. I can't answer the questions about other crimes that may or may not have been committed in Cromer. Mr. Hubbard, you mentioned on the 24th of October, you acknowledged there was an incident outside, and that the CCTV wasn't working at the time and it cuts out 4 days out of 7. it's a 12-year-old system and you suffer the effects of the weather. Have I got that right?
Yeah, that's correct. I'm not saying that 4 days out of 7 it doesn't work. I'm saying on average, especially during from October through to March when the weather's bad, the sea is bad, that you'll get the odd day where it just doesn't work.
Fair enough.
It happens with my, sorry, just to add on that, it happens with my interior cameras as well. If you look at my system, let's say it was camera 1 today, when the camera is working permanently, there'll be a permanent red bar across the CCTV system, but then you'll see glitches in it where it just flicks on and off, and it happens with all of them. Obviously, the wiring system is in the ceilings, and yeah, like I say, it's 12 years old. It's an old cable, Cat 5 cable, I believe.
Okay.
So I've been informed. Thank you.
Thank you. 20th of November, you acknowledge the incident did occur. This is the one with the Polish, and he was removed from the premises. And then sometime later, he was attacked in the high street in Cromer. And then the police investigating that came back to you for your CCTV to try and get the people concerned. Do you understand the 4 licensing objectives, Mr. Hubbard? One of those is to promote the crime and disorder, or help the police and others reduce crime and disorder. You said on 4 occasions you provided CCTV to officers, specifically the young man that was attacked outside the Wellington and attacked quite badly. So you provided the CCTV straight away.
Yeah, that's correct.
Is that correct? And PC Mazzetti and PC Smith from Sheringham, you work with those quite closely. And if they've come to you for CCTV, you've been happy to provide?
Yeah, if it's been available and been, if it's helped as such.
Well, I think that's, I mean, you must understand, I haven't applied for this licensing subcommittee. I've piggybacked Environmental Health's because of the inconsistency with your CCTV. And the reason the police would like to see the CCTV condition added, and some premises in Cromer do have the CCTV condition. The reason we'd like to see that added is to provide a level of consistency with your support to help promote the crime and disorder licensing objective. So just to clear that up, I'm supporting a review that's been put in, and I'd like to see this CCTV condition added. You've got CCTV, you provide it often, and when it suits, and you won't provide it at other times, and that's why we're asking for this CCTV condition to be added to your premises license.
I understand that. It's not when I suit, no, so I think you're very wrong there. It's when it concerns me, my premise or my building, that's when I'm happy to help out. You know yourself, PC Brooks, if a murder is committed in a street and I saw it visually with my own eyes and I didn't want to be a witness, I wouldn't have to. That's all I'm saying. I'm saying if it doesn't concern me or my staff, I don't want me and my staff dragged into it. Cromer can be a very messy town at times. I've grown up here. I see it a lot. The police were called to the Wellington on a Saturday evening for a fight. Again, just closed my doors and my staff went home. It's not as and when I suit, so I object to your comment there.
Fair enough. Well, therein, again, that's the consistency. You are expected to help promote the crime and disorder licensing objective. Doesn't only happen to be in your place if it's outside your place. It's about keeping the peace in Cromer, and you're part of that. You can only be held to account for things in your premises, I'll grant you, but that helping to prevent to support the crime and disorder license objective is really what it's all about.
Fully understand that. Then perhaps we should look at CCTV in the town itself, and then this wouldn't need to be a case of my cost, because what you're saying here is I'll need to have all my cameras improved, all the cabling system upgraded to Cat 6 or Cat 7, which is going to cost me an immense amount of money. Cameras themselves are £200 plus. I've got 14 cameras, I believe, of which 2 are a bit funny all the time. The others a bit up and down. So we're looking at a £5,000 cost here to me to improve this, to make your life easier, when you could just put the CCTV system back in the town. That's all I'm saying, PC Brooks. I fully understand where you're coming from. I accept what you're saying completely, compliantly. I like to try and just lead a quiet life, to be brutally honest. It may not seem that way by this, I understand that. But wouldn't that be the simple solution, bringing back the CCTV for the town?
I'm conscious it's becoming a discussion between you and I, Mr. Hubbard, but The reason that we ask premises to have CCTV is primarily for the safety of the staff and customers. That's why we ask for it to happen. And the local police assert in their reports to me that you're inconsistent in your approach to providing CCTV. And that's why I'm seeking the CCTV condition on your premises licence.
There's only been one occasion that I haven't provided the CCTV, and that was the incident in October 2020. I provided it in 2021 in November, but the policeman didn't come and collect it. There's no need for me to chase him. He asked me, I said, no problem. So there's only been one occasion in the 12 years I've ever worked in the building, and one occasion in the 6.5 years I've owned it that I haven't supplied it. So I have to strongly disagree with you there.
Fair enough. Okay, Madam Chair, I'm done with my questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Officer Brooks. Now I go to Dave, if you want to speak now.
I don't have too much to add. Mr. Brooks has covered a few things, and Mr. Hubbard's given quite a comprehensive explanation of the items that I've brought up in my précis that I provided. I'm afraid I haven't got an agenda to hand, so I can't refer to pages specifically, but thank you. So in terms of, I just want to address a couple of the points that were brought up in terms of complaints initially, just to offer reassurance that obviously we don't go solely on the log sheets that we do receive. And the reason that we have brought this up and also issued cautions is because it was also witnessed by a environmental protection officer. So it's not gone solely on log sheets that have been received, albeit they do paint us a picture of what the situation is. And I should point out that we didn't just attend, or we did attend on one occasion, but it wasn't the first occasion we had calls on out of hours. Unfortunately, errors in the call handling process meant that they weren't passed through to us on those occasions. So there may have been other incidents that were happening that we were unable to prove. But we have witnessed, from a noise perspective, the antisocial elements that have gone on, and that has been addressed in terms of cautions. I would also point out that the abatement notice that was issued in 2018, it was essentially conditional, being that no amplified music other than using the existing sound system at an ambient level, because the existing sound system is amplified music, it's amplifying the sound. So that is inclusive of the current system that is being used. And the opportunity was there to create a scheme. And Mr. Hubbard did attend North Norfolk District Council and speak with my colleagues on the 6th of November 2018 to put some agreements in place of how that could operate, but that was never formally followed up in terms of a written agreement or anything along those lines, which is why come to 2021, the abatement notice was still active because the terms hadn't been agreed to. So I just wanted to point that out and make sure that we all understand the purpose of the amplified music in there, and the fact that the opportunity was there to prevent it reaching this stage had we have been in a position to formally agree on sound levels and get to that stage. But unfortunately that didn't occur, which is why we've reached this stage, unfortunately. But that's all for me. Sorry, thank you.
Thank you. Do you wish to reply to that, Mr. Hubbard?
Please. Yeah, I agree with you there with what you said, David. Obviously in 2018 when the abatement notice was served, we obviously had discussions on how we could move forward, of which, yes, I never did follow up. And I know that, and I held my hand up, and we actually had that discussion in 2020. Obviously, just to be honest, work just took over for me. As I've explained, I work 7 days a week. I should have made it a priority and didn't. And that's why when it came around to the caution, I did hold my hands up. Obviously, then when COVID hit, the business was hardly open for 2 years. And I'll be honest, it did just slip my mind, rightfully or wrongfully. We're only human, we all make mistakes. And that's why I took the caution on the chin as I did. And And that's why I'm sitting here before you now. So yeah, that's fine.
Thank you. May I just ask you, how many people are allowed to be in your restaurant area at any one time?
The restaurant seats 130 people for food at any one time. Obviously, we're a big space, 2,500 square feet. On the license, if I hold any events, it's 80 people standing with a dance floor, or 80 people sitting, if for any event, which does obviously bring some confusion to myself because I can seat 130 diners in one hit plus my staff. Yeah, any event, it's reduced down to 80, which was something I wanted to discuss today, as it does add a bit of confusion in.
Yes. I think I can see that too. There is 130 seated and 80 standing.
The 80 persons that are unable to attend the premises would have been set from fire risk assessments.
So,
I had my fire risk assessments done last year from Ace Fire, and he actually said different.
Right, well, the fire risk assessments from when your licence was produced and when
Okay.
these conditions were put on was
Yep.
dating back to 2005.
Okay, that makes sense.
And that was when the fire officers used to come round
Okay.
and they'd do their own. So
Yeah,
when
yeah.
you were having events that you would have dancing seated at tables, that was the figure that was placed on your premises. And it
That would
was-
make sense because in 2005 it was obviously the Dolphin Public House, and then
And
it
it was-
transitioned to Bella Vista in 2011.
Absolutely. So those.
Makes sense. That's
So
okay.
those are still on there.
Yeah,
For the
okay.
2005 licence as it came
Yeah.
into effect from the Licensing Act 2003. Fire don't necessarily do a fire risk assessment anymore. It's based on your
Okay.
own risk assessment.
Yeah, fine.
However, those are still on your licence.
Okay.
So unless you request them to be removed,
That makes
They're
sense.
still
No,
in effect.
yeah, that makes perfect sense. That's okay. Obviously, when it transitioned from the Dolphin to Bella Vista, they obviously had a big overhaul and made it a lot bigger from what it was at the Dolphin. So that's
And-
why the more seats came in.
Yeah.
Actually, when Bella Vista first opened, there was 152 seats, I believe, and I've reduced it down because I tried to make it a bit more comfortable. So
yeah, unless we're requested via a variation to have those removed from your licence, they are still valid.
that's fine. I understand. No problem.
Have there ever been any queries from the police or from the public about the number of people in your premises at any one time?
No.
Mr. Brooks, is this okay? You please unmute yourself. You're having difficulty with that, aren't you? Keep at it, keep at it. No, you've disappeared now. Have another go. Well, I'm assuming from your nodding that,
No, there we go.
Yeah.
Unmute. I got there, Madam Chair. I'm not used to this device,
You're
but
not the only
sorry,
one.
the question was, I don't believe police have ever had to call into question the capacity in Lily Mays. Certainly not to my knowledge, and nothing on the record.
that's good. I do know because I had a licensed premises in London and the police would come in every now and again and say, excuse me, but you're way overcrowded. I had something very similar to yourself, so I do have some. I think we need to go to the legal advisor at this stage.
Yeah, I just wonder if does any other persons want to say anything further? Yeah, do you want to do that? Yeah.
So,
I should try.
oh yeah, mask, sorry.
Just
Sorry. Because there are other music venues which have licenses there, how do the people who are complaining know that the noise is coming from Lily Mays?
So in relation to the complainants that we've had, our most vocal complainant, shall we say, has been in the same building. When officers have been to inspect, they've been able to confirm both in 2016, 2018 and in 2020 that that's where the noise is coming from. And the vibrations coming through the building itself has confirmed that, as in addition to the noise.
Mr. Hubbard, you've owned this building for 6.5 years. And you have 10 flats above you?
That's correct.
And are most of them fairly stable occupants?
Yeah. I get on with six out of the 10 quite well. One of them is actually one of my staff members as well.
Okay. Did you want to say anything else? No, you've finished, haven't you? Have you finished now?
Yes.
No, if you want to ask something else, do.
Madam Chair, I just had a couple of questions, if that's okay.
That's okay.
Mr. Hubbard, I understand your frustration with the noise complaint. However, the evidence that you give today and that we've got in the report is the only evidence that we have to go off of when the panel are making their decision. So I just wonder, and I know this is a bit of a pedantic question, if you could just confirm to me how many nights a week you play loud or play music out of the 7. Thank you.
Obviously, music's played from 12 p.m. Until we close, which is background atmosphere music. Friday and Saturday nights previously, please don't take into account now in 2022 because it's completely changed. We would only play music until midnight, 1 a.m. on a Friday and Saturday. But now, since I'm going to say November, since I received my caution, we haven't played any excessive music. I've been closing at 11:30, 12 every weekend, which has obviously had a huge knock-on effect for business and trade. So yeah, but from that, since then, obviously shut for 6 weeks in January as well because did a huge refurbishment of the building and business and changed a few bits. And since then, we've completely changed the concept.
Okay, thank you.
No
And
problem.
then I just had a question for the Environmental Protection Officer, if that's okay. So Mr. Hubbard has said that the reduction in hours is potentially going to impact on his business. I wonder if there were any other recommendations that you had that are cost effective, taken into account the size, the type and the location of the business that could potentially reduce the sound that emits from the building to the residents above.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's one of my main points really. I provided a few examples of things that we may potentially recommend. One of those that we would like to see is to have it into the license, similarly to how the abatement notice was worded, that we have agreed levels of music that is produced from that venue. And that should be formally done via us and in writing, as we would have liked it to have been done previously. We would like to see some reduction in terms of hours. I appreciate it seems as though they may be operating to similar hours that we are now suggesting. By dropping it back an hour, it would ensure that on weekdays you're looking at less opportunity for disturbance, and at weekends it still allows plenty of opening time while still not going too far into the night, up to 2:30 in the morning, which is quite considerable. We also think it would be a justifiable license condition to put on there about the time at which all music can be played at the venue. Looking at something like midnight with potential for live music to be reduced slightly earlier to 11 with that ambient music as they have been doing up until midnight. And the reason that we're asking this, despite the fact that Mr. Hubbard has said that they have changed the way they're operating, is that, as I say, we've been dealing with the matter for nearly 6 years, sorry. So from 2016, it goes away, it comes back, it goes away, it comes back. And that's the pattern that we've seen emerging. So we would like something more formally put in place so that we can say that it's meeting the needs and the balance of both the business and the residents. This isn't, as I've explained to Mr. Hubbard previously, I've got no interest in shutting his business down or getting rid of his license altogether. I just want to get that balance there because yes, it is a town centre location, but it is also a residential location and we have to take both into consideration. The only other part of what I recommended was I noticed that there's quite a long list of days throughout the year where there's additional hours can be added on. I think Lara touched on it earlier about New Year's Eve, for example, Valentine's Day. We would like to see that reduced because you have potential there for music to be continuing on to 3:30 in the morning at the current conditioned hours, with the understanding that New Year's Eve, that could remain because it would then give the potential for at least until 2 o'clock in the morning for activities to continue there and celebrations. So we're looking for that balance there. We're not trying to, I appreciate that Mr. Hubbard has accepted cautions, he's accepted his responsibilities, and we just need that reassurance in place that it's going to remain as it currently is.
I just wondered, in your opinion as the expert, if there was anything other than that was mentioned in the report. Obviously, I'm not an expert in environmental health, but is there any soundproofing measures that can be done internally that could reduce the noise, or is the measures that you've popped in the report, is that the only way that you envision would actually reduce the complaints by the residents?
There's various steps that could be considered. And it may be that Mr. Hubbard would like to look at getting some sort of formal acoustic or sound report done to advise on what those could be, whether soundproofing was an option. I know from previous discussions that we've talked about bass levels, trimming those down to prevent vibration. I believe in 2016, a colleague who's no longer at Norfolk spoke about the relocation of speakers so they're not attached to structural elements of the building to assist in that matter. So there are steps that can be taken. It's just ensuring that those steps are taken.
Thank you.
Mr. Hubbard, what is the average age, would you say, of your customer?
Oh, that's impossible to say.
Well, let's go move on from lunchtime and evening meal to the evening from, let's say, 9 o'clock onwards. What would you say the average age is?
So for the bar area, average age between 22 and 40.
Right.
But I will just say my bar doesn't, between the hours of 9 and 11 p.m, my bar is dead because everyone is at the Wellington or the King's Head because they have live bands and I don't.
Right, okay. And I mean, I am fully aware of the problem of having residential properties above commercial properties.
Yep.
It's not just your sort of property, it's any property
course.
can be in trouble. And the vibrations from your equipment, sound equipment, and it usually is the bass, it's the thumping bass that will go through. So one has to be aware of that. And as David has said, if it could be, has been suggested that the bass element is lowered. I think this what needs to be done here really is to have another discussion with Lara and with David, the environmental health, and with the police, and come to some sort of agreement.
Yeah,
and I think that's the best thing at the moment, that we've not got to that stage yet. Now, what about your witnesses? Do your witnesses wish to speak at this point?
could I just touch on what you've just said? I have relocated the speakers. I did that in 2017 after Rob Lewis told me to, or asked me to, advise me to. All the bass levels have been reduced down. That was done in January. All the speaker systems have been redone, relooked at, relocated again to benefit the diners for the atmosphere, as well as the bar speakers have all been moved. The only two things I have to say with what David has mentioned there is there's only been one complaint here which exceeded the hours of 2:30 a.m, of which, again, I explained I was away for the weekend, of which a staff member was terminated. It's never been any later than 1:30 on average. So, you know, even reducing my license hours there, yes, it would have a big effect. However, I do want to work with the residents, but could I ask a question, David? I know there's predominantly two of the residents upstairs who are making the complaints, of which one of the ladies has left. She vacated 3 weeks ago, the South African lady that me and you have discussed in the past. And I believe the other gentleman who has been complaining, he he's the man that was with the elderly lady, and she passed away a month ago. And he, I believe, is looking to relocate. What I want to try and address with you there is the two complainants in the building that have made formal complaints, rightfully or wrongfully. Now that they perhaps are vacating the premises, where would that leave us going forward? Is this if there's now 10 residents in the flats and no one does complain?
Ultimately, if no one complains, then fantastic. We will only respond to complaints. We've discussed this before.
Yep.
At the last complaint that we had directly to the council was in December in relation to noise. I believe you had one in the early year direct to yourself that you made me aware of, but they didn't come to the council. If we didn't receive any further complaints, then from an environmental protection perspective, then we won't investigate you. The reason we were investigating you previously was in a response to the complaints that we received. Mm-hmm. And then we took enforcement action based upon what was witnessed by our officer.
Yep.
What I would say is that just because they've now left, mm-hmm. it shouldn't be assumed that it's all okay now, because if it's caused a nuisance to someone, to 2 people, to 3 people, there's potential there that it's going to cause nuisance in the future again. And I should just touching on timings as well that you mentioned. Timing doesn't necessarily come into nuisance legislation, for example. Just because it's within your licensed hours that the noise is happening doesn't supersede the fact that you're causing a nuisance.
I understand.
You could cause a nuisance at 8 o'clock in the morning or anything, you know. It's not as cut and dry as that. So yes, the one that was witnessed did happen at 2:49 or something along those lines, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Which was outside of your hours. But if that same noise was happening within your hours, it would have still been the same result.
Yeah, okay,
and that's just the reason that we want that reassurance that it's not going to be reoccurring.
No problem. Can I ask you just one thing? New Year's Eve just gone. I've scanned through here and there was no complaints made. I just want to ask, did anyone call you New Year's Eve? The reason I'm asking is because we didn't even see New Year's Day in the bar. We were exceptionally quiet because we were the only business in Cromer, bar the Red Lion, that didn't have a band on, because I don't want to upset anyone and I can't be bothered to keep getting told off, to be honest. We closed at 20 to 12. At 11:30, I know which resident called down to my work phone, of which I answered. He asked me to keep the bloody noise down. We were closed. So can you explain to me where that music has come from? Because I know where it's come from. It's come from the pub over the road. He told me on the phone his windows were vibrating. I honestly laughed at him down the phone. My music system wasn't even on, and we were then closing up. When I received the caution from yourself in November, I simply explained to you and the lady that gave me the caution that what if now I've received this caution and these residents know I've received this caution, that petty complaints come through, like at 5:30 p.m. one evening, just before Christmas, when I had a carpenter in, putting chairs together for me. She phoned down at 5:30 and said, "What are you doing, throwing a bloody party?" And I said, "Excuse me." I had to laugh. She said, "All I can hear is chairs banging." And I told you it would get petty. I told you it would get nitpicky, and it has. And I know these 2 complaints didn't formally come to you, and I know I sent you quite an upset email regarding this chair incident. But I let New Year's Eve go, just because, to be honest, I was just ready to go home and see my wife. But it didn't come through, and it frustrates me that that complaint didn't come through, because then perhaps if it had come through to the 8 out of hours, as you guys, as it does, one of you would have come out and seen the absolute aggressive, excessive noise coming from the Wellington to the point of my office wall shakes. And I never bat an eyelid. But this resident called down and I couldn't help but laugh. So can I ask you a question? If this happens, can I phone the out of hours and make a complaint myself? Because the complaint is coming to me when actually it wasn't me. but it's made to look like me, then that resident is going to talk to someone who's going to talk to someone and talk to someone. And then it's just going to be a complete onslaught of me. And even though I'm telling him on the phone in absolute jest, you've got the wrong person.
So, yeah, in terms of that incident you're talking about, the only way it came to our attention was via yourself.
Yes.
You emailed me the next morning and made me aware of it, and we weren't contacted directly to me or via out of hours. In terms of people complaining, unfortunately, we can't stop people complaining. If they want to complain, they're more than entitled to complain. What we can do is act based on the evidence that we have. And that's what we've done previously in terms of we've only acted when we had the evidence there to say we've witnessed it.
Yep.
If you were to receive those sort of calls, you did the right thing. You made me aware of it. As I say, I can't necessarily prevent them from doing so unless it was getting to the stage that you felt harassed or anything along those lines, in which case it may potentially become a policing matter. But if you were to call out of hours, the way the out of hours system works, that if it's a call is received in relation to nuisance noise before 11 o'clock, then they have to receive at least 5 calls in relation to the noise to pass it through to an on-duty officer.
Makes sense. Yep.
After that time, they're looking at 3 calls in relation to the noise. If, however, the premises that's being complained about has an abatement notice attached to it, then it only takes that 1 call because we've got that previous knowledge that there's issues here and we'll send someone out to it. That's the way that operates.
Yep.
Chances are, if you yourself phone, are you talking about phoning through to about the welly?
Yeah, let's just say, just because of how that gentleman called me. So let's just say that that's what I then proceeded to do.
To report the gentleman?
No, to report the Wellington,
welly.
because obviously it was them that were making the noise and not myself.
Then chances are you would end up, it would be logged, it would be passed to us, and we would start an investigation into whether that's causing a noise, nuisance, and we would go through our process as we ordinarily would.
That's fine, as long as I understand that, that's okay. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries.
Thank you.
Mr. Hubbard, you said you're quiet up until what, about 11 o'clock at night?
That's correct.
So after that time, is this when punters, as we in the trade like to call them, or who was in the trade, are they coming to you from the Wellington and from the King's Head, etc.?
Yeah, but probably around about 10:45, 11 p.m. The King's Head and Welly normally call last orders, except in summertime where they stay open a bit later. And then the overflow, probably only 30 to 35 of them come in, have a few more drinks for a couple more hours. We normally call last orders about 12:30. Everyone leaves by 1. But lately I've just reduced that down a bit.
Okay.
I'll be brutally honest, the reason I've reduced it down even more is because I'm a bit short-staffed on chefs. So I'm doing 7 days a week and I start at 7.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to get myself home to get some sleep. But yeah, that's normally the case. And like I say, that's only because we don't host bands and DJs like the Wellington and like the King's Head. So obviously, especially the younger ones under 30, they enjoy that kind of atmosphere, don't they? Whereas people like myself, I'd rather
I can
sit in the
remember
corner.
that.
People like myself, 30s and above, we're more, I'd like to say, sophisticated in some ways. We like to sit in the corner and have a drink, and we're not too fussed about the music levels. And I'm sure everyone will agree with me there. But again, we've just completely changed the concept since we reopened, on February the 10th.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Did you start an investigation into the Wellington on the basis of the complaint?
No, because I don't believe you actually bought that. No.
No, I never made a formal complaint. I was just asking in the future, if that was to happen, how would I go about pursuing it? Not that I want to complain about anyone else, because I'm not that type of person. I just don't want it coming onto my shoulders all the time, even when I'm, not there or not open. That was all I was asking.
Yes, it's bad business practice to fall out with your fellow businesses, I think. Do you wish to have your witnesses speak, or are we?
Yes,
okay?
please. Yeah.
Okay. Who wishes to speak first?
Sure.
Would you introduce yourself, please?
Hello, my name is Michelle. I've just, I feel, and no one's going to agree with me, but because I think Andrew's position, yes, he's made mistakes, absolutely, he's held his hands up. But the things that he gets complaints for aimed at him are so petty, and no one else. I mean, you know, the last one, he had an officer visit his premises because he had, like if businesses have the signs outside standing on the street, or they're all around Cromer, showing them everywhere. No one else in Cromer has had an officer visit, but Andrew has. You know, and there's lots of little things, and they just don't all add up. And I think a lot of people in Cromer and surrounding areas feel that a lot of things are targeted at Andrew. I don't know if any of you saw, someone took some videos Saturday evening in town outside the Wellington, gone 11 o'clock. The noise was excruciating. There was no one standing outside Lily Mays. If you look at the videos, the gentleman in question that unfortunately lives above the door of Lily Mays, I have been in that premises because I work for Norfolk County Council, and I went to the lady in question who lived there, who's sadly passed away. And yes, that poor lady's bedroom is at the front facing the Wellington. You know, the lounge is above the door of Lily Mays and the bedroom is at the front. Would I want to live there and listen to that? I totally get it. No, I wouldn't. You know, I wouldn't move to an area to listen. But I mean, I hope some of you have seen that video that was sent and listened to the noise, because, you know, a lot of that noise, I'm not saying it isn't coming from Andrew sometimes, because obviously it is, but a lot of it isn't. You know, I mean, I don't know who lives in Cromer, or I mean, I've grown up in Cromer. My children have grown up in Cromer. I mean, I've been to pick my children up, which I'm not saying is correct, when they've been on a night out. And there's always been police outside, you know, pubs. And I'm not saying it's correct, because it's not. But unfortunately, that is the younger generation, you know. So to target Lily and say that Lily Mays, that, oh, he's had, you know, we've had to go out 3 times, you know. I know they were at the Albion only a couple of weeks back. You know, is every visit from the constabulary to a licensed premises, is it reported to yourself?
Sorry, to environmental protection.
Is it important, or to the council, or?
I'm not sure if it is to licensing. I'm
You know,
not sure how that process
are they
works.
reported every time to the licensing board? Can anyone answer? No.
Chris, can you come in on this one, please? Because this seems to be, we seem to be going into the policing aspect of this rather than the license aspect.
Oh, I will leave that. I mean, that was just a question that I had,
Yeah,
whether,
Let's just see what Chris says.
yeah.
Unmute. They were struggling with my unmute. I beg your pardon, Madam Chair. Well, the short answer is no.
No. But so why though? Why is not? Because I mean, you know, that there are some situations that, I mean, well, you know, I mean, when is it the licensees? When is that customer not the licensee's problem anymore? Because if you come out of a building and there's a fight, you start fighting, is that our fault? Is that the licensee's fault, or?
Can I just come in here, Chris? The licensee is supposed to make sure that people are not incapacitated to the extent that they can't walk because of the fear of them getting into a car and driving.
But that doesn't happen,
No,
does it?
because that would reverberate on the licensee and they could lose their license. The police would come down like a ton of bricks. Once the person leaves your premises and seems to be okay, but gets into a brawl, a street brawl outside, I don't think that's the licensee's responsibility, Chris. I might be totally wrong here.
No, I agree with you, Madam Chair. You're only responsible for your customers and the curtilage of your building.
Yeah.
If you've allowed your customers to get in such a state that they're aggressive and they leave and they then become a problem in the town, then that can come back on you. But strictly speaking, as a licensee, you're only responsible for your customers and your curtilage. And once they're out of sight and moved away from your area of control,
Yeah.
then no. I think the question was about reporting. When crimes are recorded, I see all of those, and any additional reports that officers put in when they want to bring something to the licensing department's attention, I see those and we share them with the district as well. So, so I hope that answers that question.
Yes, thank you. Because I know that in the building, obviously the lady, gentleman, whoever lives in that building, that's that, you know, but it seems to have sort of overspilled, and you know the noise problems have been that it's his fault outside too. But you know these people could be coming, you know, it's like they call it the golden triangle of Cromer. You know, you've got the King's Head, the Welly, and was the Dolphin, Lily Mays. You know, and as I say, I've lived in Cromer and done these pubs many times, and you know, perhaps the council should invest in having their own cameras, so you can actually monitor where these people are coming from. You know, it's not just Lily Mays that is causing these problems. And as I say, like that, the noise on the last Saturday evening. If you think that that is acceptable, then Lily Mays is doomed, because that is not acceptable. You know, but you only respond to noise if you get a complaint. So the whole time that the Dolphin, obviously when it was the Dolphin and it was had, I mean, I loved the Dolphin, lovely group.
Michelle, can I just stop you there?
Yeah.
Because you are supposed to be just
Oh, sorry.
speaking
yes,
for
Yeah.
Mr. Hubbard. And
Well, I just
his
think that Mr.
license.
Hubbard, in
Yes.
a lot of ways, has been targeted and
Well,
victimised.
The issue of the CCTV is within this our domain here. The issue of CCTV for the whole of the town is not being discussed.
No, I
here.
just meant in that little area.
Yes,
Mm.
well, that hasn't come before us.
Mm.
So can I ask if that's okay
Yep.
for you? All right. Anybody else wish to speak on behalf of Mr. Hubbard? Yes, could you identify yourself, please?
Hello, my name is Jamie. I just have a question for Dave regarding ambient noise levels. What is your specific definition? I'm no like expert in sound, so I don't know, but what is like the definition of ambient noise levels for music?
Admittedly, the term ambient is fairly, well, negotiable, really. It can be interpreted in different ways. I fully appreciate that. Ambient would generally mean your general background noise. So if you've got people in your establishment, you're just playing some ambient music like you would have in a number of different shops, just as a bit of background noise, so that if people stop talking, you're not suddenly met with a deafening silence, which is no good. You don't want that in your establishment, do you? It's just there as a bit of entertainment, but it's not going to that point of actually, this is a bit of a party now. It's turned into something else. We're looking at just that background entertainment noise to keep the general vibe of the place going. That is how I would describe ambient noise to you. But I appreciate that when that's been written, that is open up to slight interpretation. But obviously, if it's at the point that it's vibrating through a premises and can be heard inside another premises, that is an ambient noise, because that's gone beyond that point. It's no longer background noise. It's going through a premises and can be heard elsewhere. So it's just about finding that balance. And that's exactly what I'm proposing we do here.
Can I just ask what decibels are considered to be ambient noise levels? Because I know you measure it.
There was a measurement done previously, and that was coming back at sort of in the 50 to 60 decibel mark.
Which is
in
what?
terms of nuisances, there's not a set amount of decibels that would suddenly become a nuisance. It's not written
No, I
in
mean, I
terms of
might
that.
find 20 decibels.
Exactly,
extremely
every single
unpleasant. You know, everybody
nuisance
has
is,
a different idea.
yeah,
so-
this is it. It's all judged on its own merits by a professional, such as an environmental protection officer, to decide whether it goes beyond that. There is some guidance out there from the World Health Organization who would say that your average, say, a nighttime level in a bedroom may be 30 decibels or below. So, which is quite quiet. It's that's the expectation from their point of view. But as I say, that's not within the nuisance guidelines that we use. That's done on observations and experience of the officer witnessing it.
Fine. I'm of the age when I can remember that you would come away from gigs deaf because the noise levels were so high.
Could I touch on that? If, let's say on a Saturday evening, I've had a full restaurant all night. And most of my all my diners are gone by 10 p.m. The music level that I've had on all day doesn't change from 12 till 9. No matter how full the restaurant is, it stays the same. Except when there's one person in, we'll probably lower it down. Now, once they leave, and let's say, for argument's sake, 100 people walk through the door at 10:30 until midnight to enjoy drinks, bar, atmosphere, all that. Where does the ambient music level go to then? Because obviously, as you all know, you have a few drinks, your volume goes up, your whole aura just increases. I know mine does. I'm a 6'18" stone guy, so I know mine does when I've had a few too many rums. But where does that more music? Because for us, for me and you to meet in the middle, David, which is great. I truly believe you need to be there on a Saturday evening when it's at its busiest, around 10:30, 11 at night, to set that ambience with me. Not be there at 4 o'clock in the afternoon when I've got 20 diners in, because the ambience levels for that atmosphere that you're saying needs to be there, which it does, they're going to be two completely different things. One might be 30 decibels at 4 p.m. and one might be 60 at 11. I'm just saying, I don't know what that is, but that might be the difference. And that's, I think, where you come in on a Saturday, we've got 100 people in there, it's carnival week, everyone's enjoying themselves, everyone's fancy dress night, everyone's dressed up as clowns, they're all having a great time, which they do. And then you be in and be like, right, it's 11 p.m. on a Saturday, this is where your music should never exceed. And we set that point. And I know I could have done that a few years ago. But my business when it was Craft Burger before Lily Mays was never that business for that. I was never open after 10:30 in the evening because I never used the bar to how I did until I ripped the whole place apart and started again. But now, when it was Craft Burger, I just hosted 2 events a year. That's all I did, just a fancy dress night and Halloween party. And that's where the live deed bands came from, and that's why I stopped them. But obviously now I would like to do a bit more, but I don't, so I don't want to cause any bother for anyone. But that's where I think we should meet in the middle, is when Easter comes around and it's Easter weekend and everyone's got 5 days off because it's bank holiday and they're all enjoying themselves and having a 3-day bender and they're in there on a Saturday night. That's where I think that level should be agreed to. And I hope everyone in this room would agree with me on that. I don't think you can set an ambience level at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, 6 o'clock in the evening when you've got families in eating food. I think it needs to be set when it's at its busiest, at its height, where everyone's in, you know.
I should explain, in terms of the ambient level, that was the terminology
Yeah, of
used
course.
in the abatement
Yeah, I
notice
understand that,
only. What we would like to do is very similar in terms of creating that
Yeah.
in agreement between all parties, a sound level,
Yeah.
so that we can do exactly that, saying that's your sound point, don't go above that.
Yeah.
And how we went about that would certainly be up for discussion.
Yeah.
We would just like it formally put down in essentially on the license to say that that is the case of what we do, because otherwise we essentially it's not tied to anything. Is from our perspective, it would be a gentleman's agreement, for want of a better phrase.
Because I truly believe that if we find that common ground, and now that Lily Mays has rebranded from Craft Burger and it's a different concept and it's a bar and grill, and I've separated the restaurant from the bar and I've tried to make it accommodate everyone from the age of 5 up to 100, I truly believe that even changing the license wouldn't necessarily be needed once we found that common ground. Because, you know, Carnival Week, bits and bobs where the town, it has 50, 60,000 people there a day. It's just an opportunity to really grasp onto that money to survive the winter, to keep the 25 full-time staff I employ on and to do these things well. You know, and you start restricting that, which if that's the case, I'm fine with. I'll hold my hands up and I'll deal with it going forward. I've changed my business since COVID. I've done it. I've adapted in the best way possible. But, you know, I see one of the changes that you've added in there is having an SIA doorman on the. That's just not necessary. I'm not paying for a doorman on the door because I'd never have any trouble in my building. Everyone does leave quietly. Jamie's my younger brother, and we're very well known, so we assist the bar on a Friday and Saturday. We're very, very headstrong. If someone walks up to the door and he's taken 16 steps sideways and 1 step forward, he doesn't come in. It's as simple as that. We are very strict. And when we tell people to leave, Jamie, we ease them out the door, and Jamie's very authoritative. Be quiet, go home, disappear. People don't want to hear, I want to go home. We do that ourselves. I don't want to start adding a cost of a doorman in there. So I definitely don't want to add it on my license. It's an unnecessary cost that my business cannot afford to stomach.
Yeah, I mean, the reason I put that in was you'll notice that in my list, we had complaints about rowdiness outside from people coming from it.
Of course.
And also, I believe in the letters that came afterwards, there was reports of vomiting in doorways, that sort of thing.
I'm glad you've just brought that up, because that was my next thing. Could you tell me where there is any stonewall evidence that any one of my customers has thrown up in a doorway that doesn't belong to me or my premise, that belongs to the ice cream shop and the flats next door? Can you tell me how they didn't come over from the Welly or the King's Head? The reason I'm saying that is because on Saturday night, at 11:15, someone stood in that doorway, threw a cigarette on the floor, poured the drink out, and threw up and walked away. And they came from the Welly.
I'll be honest.
That's all I'm saying.
I can't explain any more than what the person's put there.
I don't want to then
Unfortunately,
incur that cost of having a doorman for him to keep an eye on the Wellingtons or the King's Head people. Do you know how many people on average walk over from them pubs, stand by the seawall, have a cigarette, throw the cigarette down the front on the grass, and then walk back to that pub? I could tell you it's in the region of 200 people a weekend. They're not my customers. And we use plastics from 10:30 p.m. every weekend. Every weekend. I don't use glass. So that complainant saying there's broken glass in the door, that's not my glass. I can tell you that since 2020, when we reopened as Lily Mays after Craft Burger, after COVID, I use plastics. And the reason being, the cost of everything has flown up, and the cost of a standard glass is now like £3 and it was 50p. I just refuse to have these things broken. So that complainant making those complaints, I think it's really irrelevant to what he's trying to challenge me with. The noise, I hold my hands up. I'm here for that. But the rest that he's just trying to pick and add on more and more. And then when I see things like the SIA doorman perhaps being added in, I just find it wrong, because that's a cost to me and my company that I do not need.
That's a decision to be made ultimately. I can only put forward suggestions as such, but that may be the case, but that's not for me to decide.
The puking in the doorway is unfortunately something that many premises have to put up with. And as you said, it doesn't necessarily mean it's your customers. It's who's ever walked down 100 yards down the street and suddenly realised that they were feeling unwell. And they invariably do not throw up in the road. They usually try and find a door. But anyway, that's between that's just one of those things.
Of course.
Georgie.
I think obviously going forward, there's going to be a lot of interaction and agreement and monitoring. And I'm a little bit worried because two of the interactions that have been described have been quite disputatious and not very nice. Can you give us any assurances or put them into context? Or
yes, of course. I'm a great believer in life, and what's right is right, what's wrong is wrong. And when I'm wrong, I hold my hands up. However, if I feel I'm being attacked, I'm being victimised, I'm being approached in the wrong manner, obviously I'm going to stand my guard. My guard is just going to be up instantly. I've tried to work with the flats on my laptop here, actually, probably before this notice came along, before I was sent this notice. I was actually in the midst of writing letters to the flats above since I reopened. So obviously we reopened in 2020 as Lily Mays. I closed in January. I've just spent another £155,000 refurbishing the place, new kitchen, new everything. And even though I'm still called Lily Mays, I've rebranded the Lily Mays brand. I wanted a bit of a different concept. I've been a chef for 16 years and I thoroughly enjoy food. So I wanted to just sort of step it up a bit and take Chroma to the next level while incorporating the bar in there somewhere and allowing younger people, middle-aged people to enjoy themselves. So I've taken a whole different approach for that very reason, because I want to work with them. So I started writing the flats a letter. I got 3 days in because I wanted to word everything correctly. I wanted to invite them, speak to them, have coffee with them. And I really wanted to get a common ground and start fresh and apologize for where I've gone wrong. And then I received this letter. So I held off the flats because I didn't want to get myself in any more trouble or make things worse or anything, just in case. So I am very fair, although it may not seem it because I've had arguments, but, you know, actually in 2018, I had a bit of an argument with Karen Baker, who's on the environmental health, but me and Karen now get on like a house on fire. We really do. And I think the woman's fantastic. She understands me. She absolutely loves my business. I've never not had a 5-star food hygiene rating, just small things from her. Just, and we got off on the wrong foot. And I came to the council offices and I apologised because I was wrong. So I'm more than happy to meet in the middle. Me and David actually touched on a mediation, didn't we, with one of the residents, which just then fizzled out. Whose fault that was, I don't know. But the fact that it's going to be going to and from doesn't mean it's going to go wrong. It means that we're just starting off on the right foot. I've got a very, very busy little business, very busy, which I've built from the ground up. So me losing that business is not something I want to happen. Me losing my license, it being revoked, is not something I want to happen, obviously. It's a very family-run business. Me and my wife started it together 6 years ago. It's now named after our daughter. I have made mistakes, and I will openly admit that. And David will agree with me because I've said that to him. I brought the business when I was 24 years old. I had no idea about business, didn't even know how to pay a member of staff. However, I have learned from my mistakes massively. I have changed as a person. I've adapted. I currently have a 14-year-old young man work for me, just does 5 hours on a weekend. He's got Asperger's, very lovely young man. And he's the 4th young person I've employed over time who has problems and difficulties. And I take him in with open arms because I believe helping people and hospitality, as you've said, because you've been in the trade, it really does bring people out in themselves. Those people could be so shy, it's almost like they're locked in a box. And then after a year, they're like a different person. And I believe that's what hospitality brings. And I believe that's what I bring to my business. So it is difficult, but there will be no headaches, no clashes. I just want to meet in the middle and push forward and do right by the town and the residents, because I don't want to upset them. Because if someone was causing a nuisance for my wife and my daughter, I'd definitely be knocking on their door saying, please shut up because I want to go to sleep. So I understand that. Please don't think I don't, because I do. So I don't think there'll be an issue going forward, personally.
Is that okay?
Yes, thank you.
Just to say, you are an impressively large man, and sometimes this could be intimidating to various people. You have had some words with the police in the past, and with, as you said, and with the environmental. Is Karen licensing or environmental health? Right. So you're a young man, stop and think.
Yes, of course.
That's a very simple thing to think about.
Yep.
But I've discovered that when I've had to deal with extremely irate and drunk people, if you just talk calmly to them, normally they react differently. And being a woman
Agreed.
also, I have to say, makes a difference. Anyway, closing statements now, if no more witnesses wish to speak. Any closing statements that you wish to make, Chris or David? Chris has disappeared again. Not here he comes. No, here he is.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I understand, obviously I've heard everything that's been said. I understand that some of the incidents that I recorded on the representation made by police are disputed by Mr. Hubbard. However, you know, these are the officers' perspectives. I think there was an incident, it's been acknowledged that there was an incident on the 20th of November. There was a customer that was threatened inside Lily Mays, and then he left. Now, this guy's assertion was that he was followed out, and it was the same people that had been in Lily Mays that beat him up in Cromer High Street a bit later on. So the request for the CCTV was legitimate because they were trying to find, you know, the perpetrators of the assault. Primarily, CCTV is to protect staff and customers. The premises already has a CCTV system, and I'd ask that in the interest of consistency, that we have that additional condition added under the crime and disorder licensing objective as per the letter. An adequate CCTV system will be in operation at the premises whenever it's open for business. Images will be stored in digital format for a minimum of 28 days and made available on reasonable request to the police or regulating licensing authorities. Any failure to provide the images when properly requested will constitute a breach of the premises licence. And that's my submission, Madam Chair, and that's the case for the police, please.
Thank you, Chris. You want? Yes, sorry. We have Georgie wants to ask you a question, Chris.
Hello. I just wondered if there was an operational reason why it had to be 28 days, because if his system already stores them for 14, does that make a difference? Because that would avoid extra cost.
Yes, some licenses say 14 days, and I'm sure as an intermediate step we could agree 14 days until the system's upgraded. But Home Office guidelines normally say between 28 and 31 days, so for a month. And the idea of that, of course, is for victims to come forward sometimes later, and then we can backtrack the investigation. So it's the reason we ask for 28 days is purely because of the Home Office guidelines.
Is that okay?
Thank you.
Thank
you. Oh, excuse me. Sorry. Question. Yeah. Thank you.
Just to close, I shan't go over everything again because we've been through it quite a lot already. But I just want to draw your attention to the fact that this has been an ongoing matter in peaks and troughs for a number of years. And what we're really looking for is that reassurance provided by the license that a regime will be in place that offers security and a balance to both the business and to residents. We're certainly not looking to target or unduly put upon Mr. Hubbard's business in any way.
Do the applicant and representatives who wish to speak?
Jamie.
Jamie, yes.
Thank you. Just a question for Chris regarding the CCTV and consistency. Does consistency work both ways? Because if so, Mr. Hubbard has helped in the past 4 times the police with the CCTV, but consistency from the policing level of how they approach Mr. Hubbard and his business when asking for the CCTV, because he is human and his staff are human. So to enter almost not aggressively, but very assertively and forcefully trying to force one of his members of staff into a corner to open the cupboard that only Mr. Hubbard has access to, I don't see much consistency on that part either.
Yeah, it's clear from the reports that some officers have a different relationship with Andrew. But you know, the idea of consistency is, you know, when the police make the request, and I accept they don't always make it the best way, but when the police make the request, it's not on a whim. It's normally because of an investigation. And what I'm after is some consistency in that approach. David talked about the need potentially for door staff, but for my money, if you've got a good CCTV system, it provides the best deterrent for people that would otherwise cause disorder. It provides reassurance and confidence for your staff and for your customers, because they're going to feel safer coming into a place with a good CCTV system. This is why we always advise having good CCTV, because these days, a picture paints 1,000 words. You can try and describe an altercation as much as you like. You'll never capture it the way an image does, or a moving image, I should say. But yeah, you're right. I accept that, Andrew's relationship with officers can be different, but when it comes down to investigating crimes, we need the consistency in the approach for providing the images, please. I hope that answers that, Madam Chair.
Is that all right, Jim?
Yeah, thank you, that's fine.
Thank you. Statements you wish to make?
Yes, please, just to Chris in relation to what you've mentioned there. Chris, if that incident in November regarding the young lad Polish, obviously that was NFA'd because your officers did not come and receive the CCTV. I even gave an off-the-record statement to one of the police officers and told him I'd give a proper statement, because actually what you've said there is very, very incorrect of what happened on that evening. Actually, Polish was in the wrong. He dragged the young gentleman into the disabled toilet and he approached the young gentleman in a very, very ill manner. Mike Polish was then escorted off the premises by me and my brother. He was taken round the corner by the Hotel de Paris, out the way of everybody, in the dark, and ushered up the street near the old Barclays Bank and told to go home. He lived up Norwich Road at the time. So why was he then attacked at the Prince of Wales Road, the other end of Cromer? It makes absolutely no sense. I do not, and I will stand here in front of you all, I will agree to any terms you want to add into my license. I will not agree to the CCTV. I think what you're asking is too much. It's unheard of. The Wellington do not even have CCTV outside their premises, and they have more action there than I do. So why add it in onto one license and not the other? It then brings me to the fact of, it's a very, very, very simple fix here. And this is aimed at everyone at the NNDC. You need to just put CCTV back into the high streets. It's going to just prevent your headache. I can't agree to this term of a 28-day hold. The system's 12 years old. That hard drive has been there for 12 years. It is a 14-day, holds the system for 14 days. I do not have £1,000 spare. I will not have £1,000 spare this year to buy one, because I'm paying off the debt of the more money I borrowed for my refurbishment. My cameras are only as good as they are. I can't afford to have them rewired. And should your officers want to speak to me, just because I'm 18 stone and 6 foot and I look aggressive, I'm actually one of the nicest people you'll ever meet, and I'll help anyone and do anything for anybody. However, should you want to come forward to me and speak to me in an ill manner, then I'm simply just going to shut down. Because yes, you're the police. Yes, what you say goes. It doesn't give you the right to manipulate the rules and the law and to make people like myself feel uncomfortable. So I think, Chris, that you generally should probably go back to November 2021 and pull up this file of this complaint. And I think you should probably try and get to the bottom of the story and the truth. Mike Polish has been barred from my bar since. That's how wrong he was being towards this customer. This customer lived in High Kelling. He was 24 years of age. I took his name, I took his address, and I sat down in the restaurant with him, with my brother, and took his complaint about what had happened with Mike. And I told him I was going to speak to the police the next day. Mike Polish has then called the police for being attacked at Prince of Wales Road, the other end of Cromer, where he lives. But he was ushered and walked a quarter of the way home by me and my brother. So what you're saying has no representative of what happened. It's completely wrong. And it would have been made true should the police come and spoke to me with the CCTV and took my statement as a business owner because of what did occur on the premise. I have no issues helping the law enforcement at any time. Chris, please understand that. But however, you need to understand this. When a police officer comes to visit me, they don't just send one, they send 4. And that is discrimination against my size. Yes, I go to the gym. Yes, I am a bodybuilder. And yes, I look after myself. And so does my wife. But But actually, 7 years ago, I was 8.5 stone in weight. I had no beard, and I looked like Gollum out of Lord of the Rings, to be brutally honest. And I did something about myself, and I changed the way I look and how I felt. I shouldn't be discriminated because of that, and you shouldn't be sending 4 police officers to ask me a simple question. But that is what happens on a regular basis. And could I also ask that you don't send them at 2 o'clock in the afternoon when I have customers in eating dinner? It doesn't look very good when the premises holder, who's also in chef whites, and also the business owner, has to come out and speak to the 4 officers in the middle of my restaurant. Do you know how that looks for my customers?
Well, PC Barnes made the point how it looked. She described it as unprofessional, and she went back to a police car because you wouldn't give her the CCTV. So she did make quite an effort to try and explain how that looked, and try to explain how it looked to you, that it really wasn't good in front of your customers.
Of course, Chris, and I fully understand that. PC Barnes was very unprofessional herself, and yes, how I then want to react in front of my customers is my choice. But my action was just a reaction from her. That is my choice as a business owner. If I want to raise my voice in front of my customers and I then lose them customers, that's my decision. But you as the policing commission should make the right choice for business, especially when I'm not under arrest, I've not violated any laws, and you should choose a time to come in. Give me a call. Can I come and see you at 9 a.m? No problem. No customers will be in the building then. But when PC Barnes comes in and tells me she could confiscate my CCTV under some section, and I say, by all means, unplug it. I opened the door. I left the door open. I was left for standing there for 5 minutes. I said, unplug it and take it with you. No problem at all. If you want to seize it, seize it. But what I'm not going to do is I'm not going to help you out when you're speaking to me like the way you are. She was awful, awful. And I've had 2 more discussions with her since then. One of them around my house, and we've been very polite and got on because she spoke to me like a human and not like a criminal, not like I've just axed 6 people. But what I'm saying from you is, if you want my help, you want me to be respectful and treat me with some respect back. Don't send 4 officers to my door in the middle of the day when I'm serving 300 people. Call me, see me out of hours, and I will help you in the best way possible. But also, if you tell me you're coming for an interview and you want my CCTV footage, then by all means, please come and do it. Don't then leave it and then add it into a document as I've got in front of me and use it against me in a hearing for my license, because it's wrong. You haven't taken my side. You haven't even got my statement. You haven't received the CCTV.
Can I ask you just to wrap up a bit?
Of course, no problem.
We'll be
no
here
problem.
till 5 if we carry on. You are loquacious, as they say.
But I have nothing more to say. Obviously, I've said I've made mistakes, etc. I learn every day in business. So going forward, I just want the right outcome for everybody, including my business.
Georgie has one more
Of
question
course.
for you.
What does not agree to look like with regard to the CCTV?
What do you is in what?
You said I will not agree to it.
The 28-day hard drive system is. Why should I have to incur that cost? My system's it's good enough.
If that's a condition and you don't agree to it,
Yeah, then
does that mean?
obviously that's a discussion we'll have to meet to once the decision's made. But all I'm saying is here, I don't believe that any conditions that are being changed on here should be at cost of me. I'm happy for my hours to be reduced. If you want to revoke it, that's something I have to deal with. But I'm not happy for things to start costing me money when I do all I can anyway.
I think we have to wrap this up now and go to the legal advisor. It has been suggested that a 14-day situation would be acceptable until such time
Thank you.
as you feel able to put in the 28-day. But I mean, that is something for the licensing. Yes. Yes, of course.
Thank you. It's just to reiterate that we're here to review the premises licence today, that we've received an application from Environmental Protection and that the police have supported that application. They are not the people that are bringing said application, and that you do have quite a large level of actions that you can take if you deem necessary. But it is we are here under the Licensing Act 2003 to review the premises licence.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for reminding us about that, because we seem to have strayed wide and long over various other things. Now I now go to our legal advisor to
Thank you,
conclude.
Madam Chair. I will just briefly go through my advice, just to reiterate my advice. My opinion will not form part of the decision. I'm just an impartial advisor. I have tried to keep up as we've gone along, but my advice in the meeting may change because there's been a lot discussed today. So panel, I would ask that you have regard to the council's licensing policy, in particular those sections highlighted in the officer's report. I would refer you to the part of the licensing officer's report, namely that each case is decided on its individual merits. The panel need to focus on the promotion of the 4 licensing objectives. The most relevant in this instance is the prevention of public nuisance. The panel should have regard to the Section 182 guidance, the Licensing Act, and in particular, the section relating to public nuisance and crime and disorder. Panel, you should have regard to all representations made today at the hearing, and the case of Daniel Twite and Wirral Magistrates Court and others says that you need to place significant weight on the representations made by the responsible authorities, which is the NNDC Environmental Protection Officer and also the Norfolk Constabulary Officer here today. In relation to the representations that have been made, both written and oral, the panel should only consider relevant representations that assist with the promotion of the 4 licensing objectives. The panel should not consider representations that are vexatious or frivolous and should be disregarded by the panel. I also draw your attention to paragraph 2.7 of section 182 guidance, which outlines that public safety concerns the safety for people using the relevant premises rather than public health, which is addressed in other legislation. And lastly, the panel should consider that any conditions that are imposed should be proportionate to the type, size, location, and activities taking place at the premises. In particular, the panel should consider section 1010 of the section 182 guidance, which states that they should not excess the need for proportionality. That advice, as I say, may change in the meeting as discussions go on. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thanks to everybody. It's been an interesting and it's been an interesting meeting. Now, the subcommittee will now retire to make a decision, so we disappear. Are we asking that if you can now carry on that Mr. Hubbard stays, or can he now go?
No, you can go. As I said, the decision will be with you within 5 working days. If you have any questions thereafter, you can direct them to Lara, the licensing officer.
That okay?
Thank you ever so much for your time. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, thank you for speaking and turning up here. Okay. The public